Badass business owners, welcome to another episode of the Local Small Business Coach Podcast, where each episode we work on getting you to $100,000 in take-home pay. So if you're all ready to boost your profits, increase your sales, improve your processes, and develop stronger teams so you can stop living job to job, then let's dive in. Hey, badass business owners, welcome back to the Local Small Business Coach Podcast. How are my badasses doing today? I'm really excited. I have been wanting to find a logo, and I've kind of changed it multiple times over the last, 6 months or so. I've kind of been going back and forth. I've been trying to find something that just really resonates with me, not just as the local business coach, but one of the things that I've been wanting to do is something that just captured the essence of the tribe, of you guys, of who you truly are. And I started realizing that it was hitting me upside of the head the entire time because I start every episode off the same way, right? Badasses. I think of you guys as my badasses. I have the Facebook group, Badass Local Small Business Owners. Badasses is the whole thing. Guess what, guys? You are going to love this. I have been working on with somebody to create a logo that works for us as a group being badasses, and I'm going to be introducing it over the next into everything here coming up. It's being finalized right now. It's going to be coming out, and it'll probably be out by the time you guys listen to this. But I'm going to put it on stuff. I'm going to actually put it on to where we can get it on different things if you want to have something that says you're a badass and you want to tell it to people. So I'm really excited by this. Hopefully I can have some shirts made, maybe some mugs. I don't know. I'm going to play with it and see where it goes. And it's really cute. I really like it. I hope you like it too. And it's kind of funny trying to think of a logo that works with a representation of what a badass is. But a badass is something different to everybody when you picture that badass. So I've been laughing because I didn't want it to be a total badass guy. I didn't want it to be a total badass girl. I just wanted something that represented something badass. And I think I found something that's going to work. And it ties a little bit of me into it because of a character that I really like. And I was able to pull everything together. And I just loved the way that it came out. So I know I'm teasing you, huh? But you'll probably see it before this comes out. We'll see. Those of you in the Facebook group will probably see it. But I don't know. Sorry, I'm just really excited. I really like it. And it's been something I've been trying to do. And some of you guys can understand because a lot of you guys probably tried to come up with a logo for your business. And, we spend way too much time on our logos. And I didn't want to try to do that. So I said, it'll come to me as time goes on. And I'm really excited because I think that's exactly what happened is by me not forcing it in the beginning. I mean, I did, but I didn't. I wasn't completely married to any of them. And I realized I'm still in the infancy of it. And by the way, you can change your logo anytime. There's people that have changed their logo 10, 20, 30 years into something. And I knew that when the time would come that I would know what that logo would look like. And it was funny because this person captured exactly what it is that I was thinking as far as the vision of what it would represent, even if that wasn't, it was kind of the look that I wanted, but it wasn't something, because I'm not a visual person. I kind of have to see it, but I know what I want. And it was kind of neat to have that done. So maybe you felt that way when you got your logo for your business. I felt that way. I have an orange house that I use for my real estate that once, it started off looking one way. And by the time we got it to what it finally was, I was like, that's my orange house. That's my house for real estate. And this is my logo for you guys, my badasses. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to brag about that. All right. Today I want to talk more about, as you know, I'm on this quest to help you guys know your numbers better and to better understand them. So today I want to talk about something I haven't talked about in a while, and that is your inventory. One of the numbers that I think that we tend to forget about is inventory. And inventory is simply money sitting on a shelf somewhere. Okay? Inventory is profit tied up in items. Now, I'm not saying inventory is a bad thing. We need inventory. If you go into a grocery store and they had no inventory, they have no business, right? When you walk into that grocery store, you expect to find inventory products sitting on the shelf. When I worked for Home Depot, for example, back in the day, at one point, we had about $10 million in inventory at any given time in the majority of those stores. I don't know what their number is today, But even if it's somewhere I'd say it's still probably, even if they've cut back on some things, moved ahead, it depends upon the items. We're probably looking still between $8 and $12 million, depending upon the size of the store and what it has in there. That's a lot of flipping inventory. And by the way, that's inventory at cost, not inventory at what its potential to sell is. It's crazy. But every time they start a store, every time one of these big box retailers, let's just take any of them, anytime one of them do it, they know they're making a huge commitment of profit to be tied up in inventory, right? So if you had to put $8 to $10 to $12 million sitting in inventory, you're going to really pay attention to that number because that's what happens is inventory is a huge metric for these companies because they know that it's profitability sitting there. Same thing with any other items that you may have that you keep in your place. Anything that we buy is part of your balance sheet, right? Anything that you own. Inventory is part of your balance sheet because it is assets that you have in the company. And we're going to do something on balance sheets down the road, but just one of the things that I want to make sure that there's a connection to is inventory. And inventory can be things that you're going to turn around and sell, and it could be other stuff that you just happen to have laying around. One of the mistakes that I see people make all the time is they don't pay attention to their inventory. They don't pay attention to all of that stuff that is sitting on a shelf. They don't pay attention to all that stuff that is laying around in their shed. They don't pay attention to that stuff that's sitting in some storage unit somewhere. All of that is money. And I need you guys to start thinking about all of that crap as money. And one of the areas that we tend to get in trouble with is it's easier to keep it than to store it than to take it back. For some of you guys, you have tons of inventory because it's the only way that you can purchase it. You have to purchase tons of it to be able to get what you have. I was talking to somebody who sells. I remember one day I was talking to somebody that has a business that they have to buy all of this inventory to be able to get the business up and going. And they had easily $5,000-$6,000 worth of product for this particular item. And they sell them, it's not crazy sales, but they sell maybe, a couple pieces a week, if you will. So let's just say they sold 5 to 10 pieces a week. And by the way, 5 to 10 pieces at $40. Okay, when you do the math on that, let's just say 10 pieces a week, that's $400. And yet they have $5,000 sitting there. And by the way, more than likely, I have a feeling if they actually counted it up based off of the conversation, they probably have closer to $7,000 to $10,000 worth of product there, because sometimes in order to sell one of those things, they have to buy more to get the one particular item, which is continually adding. And I think what happened is they had an initial investment, and I think it kind of grew as they were doing more sales and stuff for other people. And they're not the only ones that do that. By the way, multi-level marketing, some of those places, they always end up having more inventory than what you expect because you have your initial buy-in and then you have more stuff that you get. So I really want to step back and everybody to look at their inventory as pieces of their profit. And let's kind of step back and look at a couple things. One is, do you take inventory? Do you literally have a spreadsheet, a notepad, something that you write down every single item that you have that's sitting in inventory? I'm going to bet for most of you, the answer is no. And this is a big, big, big mistake. You need to know how much inventory you have. And if you have not done this or you haven't done it in a long time, I want you to grab either a spreadsheet or I want you to grab just a simple notepad. And I want you to just start walking every piece of product that you have laying around, whether it's sitting on shelves, stacked in boxes, sitting in your garage, sitting in a shed, sitting in a storage unit. I want you to add it all up. I want you to physically write out what it is and what each of those items cost you and how much value is there. And I want you to add that number up. And I'm going to tell you, for most of you guys, it is thousands and thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars that you have tied up. That's profitability that is tied up. So here's the thing, a couple things that you need to keep in mind when it comes into your inventory. Do you need inventory to be able to do sales? Absolutely. But you need to find out what the right number is. And that right number is going to be based off of a lot of different things. The first and foremost thing that number is going to be based off of is how often do you sell that item. So for example, if you sell 10 of something a week, then at minimum you need 10 of those things a week. But then there's other things that come into play. How fast can you get that stuff? Does it take 6 to 8 weeks to be able to get it? In which case you may need to have more than that. Can you only order it once a month? Can you do you have to order it in bulks of 100 or 1,000? That's going to play. If you sell something that you have to order in a bulk of 1,000 and you only sell 10 a week, you have to ask yourself, that's 100 weeks of supply of something. In which case you have to ask yourself, are you getting the return on the sale of that product? Honestly, you should never, ever, ever sit on 100 weeks of supply of anything. So if you either choose not to carry it at all, 2, you find someone else to take half of them, if not more, find 3 or 4 other sellers to be able to split that all up and the cost up, or you find a way to do a special to get rid of those things. But you never. Now, most people are going to have, it's called turns, which is turns means how often a year are you turning that stuff. So if you turn something once a month, you're going to get 12 turns out of it, right? Because there's 12 months, you're turning it over once a month. That's 12 turns. That's a really good turns. At minimum, you should be getting something turned over at least 4 times a year, which means every quarter you're selling it. I think you'd be in a good place if you could at least get 4. Every business is different. Every department is different. For example, at Home Depot, the store had a turn number that it had to do, but each department also had one. So one department might be 3, one department might be 12. If you think about perishable goods, grocery stores have a very high turns. That food cannot sit there. I'll bet you the produce department had to have produce and meat had a very high turn rate. It was probably days, not weeks. It probably was several days was their turns. But yet when you go over look at, the baking goods or the canned goods, theirs could be much longer because the shelf life is way longer. Not that they want to have high turns over there, but you get my point is that the more perishable something is, the quicker and the more often it must turn. So each of you have to kind of look at your particular products. But the one thing you don't need is you don't need years and years of supply. You don't need months and months of supply. And for some of you guys, if you get so excited about what it is that you sell, and that when somebody wants something, you just buy it and you're like, oh, I sold it. And you get all happy because you're like, oh my God, I made all this money. Listen, all of the profit in the world doesn't mean anything if you have it sitting on the shelf next to you. And I'll see people that will do that because they'll have something that they think they have to have 50 of something to be able to satisfy every customer. And guess what? No, you don't. You don't need to have 50 of everything to be able to do it because all that is setting more money off to the side. Your long-term profitability goes down because if you have to buy $1,000, and I'm just going to use exaggerated numbers, if you have to buy $1,000 worth of some product to be able to make a sale to get, one $50 sale, then you really have $950 sitting over here. So while you make great profit on that particular item, you know what? You're still sitting over here with all of this potential profit, and all that potential profit is stuff that you haven't done anything with. If you're a fan of the profit, speaking of profit, if you're a fan of the profit like I am, one of the things that you've noticed when you've watched that is when Marcus purchases a business that has a lot of inventory, that they have a lot of stuff sitting on shelves or stuff that's just not moving, just not selling. Maybe they have a storage thing with tons of stuff. What's the first thing that he does? He does a street sale, right? He gets all that stuff up, he puts it on pennies on the dollar, and he sells it. And he just gets rid of it. And he knows he's going to take some of it as a loss. But here's the thing, something that's been sitting on a shelf for ever and a day, while it may have cost you $10 to purchase it, if it's been sitting there for years, you're getting zero. That means zero money off of that. I don't care how much you originally paid for it. Whereas if you can turn around and sell it tomorrow for $5, at least you got $5 versus it sitting there, and it frees up the cash in your business to be able to buy more stuff, to invest back in the company. So sometimes we have to take a loss and just cut our losses. And so if you have a lot of inventory that's sitting off to the side that you have not been using and it's just been sitting there, I encourage you to do one of those fire sales like you see him doing. get the cash, say you sell it all for $500 or $1,000 or something else, would you rather not be able to take that $500, $1,000 and reinvest it in the company to buy either more something else that you need or a piece of equipment that's going to lead to more sales and everything else? So sometimes when we don't have the funds to be able to grow the business, go look at your inventory. You might have money sitting there, and I encourage you, how can you buy better? You know what? When I had my ice cream shop, trust me, I had my turns down. I understand turns because of my years at Home Depot, and my ice cream, I could get ice cream every single week. If I knew I could get ice cream every week, sure, I could grow, just order 1 week at a time. But what I did is I had about 2 to 3 weeks of ice cream at a given time, because obviously I don't want to stunt sales. You need to have enough to be able to grow your sales. But at the same time, I didn't want it sitting around for a long periods of time. Same thing with the cups, the cones, everything else in the back. I had the exact same thing. I knew the lead times. I also planned for an extra week of hiccups in case that order didn't come in. So even though I could order every single week, some weeks I had to make a call going, okay, I'm not going to be able to make an order for 2 weeks because I'm not going to be able to hit the minimums, in which case I needed to bump out that order. So instead of hitting the minimum 1 week, I might stretch that out a little bit higher on my purchase, because I knew I had to skip several weeks to be able to get through the next few weeks that I would not be able to put an order in. So sometimes you do have to play with those numbers. But here's the thing. I took inventory every single week. I did it every week like crazy. Do you need to do that? Depends on your business. Some of you kids can get away with doing it once a month, but you definitely need to do it on a regular basis. It is money sitting on a shelf. I want you looking at your stuff laying around differently than what you have in the past. I don't want you thinking of it as junk. I don't want you thinking of it as extras. I want you thinking of it dollars. Every time you see a brown box, every time you see a product, I don't want you to see that product. I want you to see dollars, and I want you to ask yourself, how would you spend those dollars if you could? Now, if it's dollars that are going to lead to more dollars in the next several weeks, then they're good dollars. They're happy little dollars. You see little happy faces on those dollars as they sit there, because they're going to bring you in more money in the next month or so. If there's other things that are sitting over there, I want you to see sad, limpy dollars that are sad because they're not being used properly. And I want you to figure out, how are you going to sell that? Can you sell it on eBay? Can you sell it to another person who does what it is that you do? Can you return it? What can you do to turn that back into cash? Can you run a special, a sale or something to get rid of it? Even if you have to take it as a loss, you get to write it off in your books for the loss, because it cost you, you already counted it, what you paid for it to get it. And when you take it out as the sales, it can be part of that loss. You can see a bookkeeper that can help you with all that stuff if you need it. But at the end of the day, that is doing nothing for you, sitting in your backyard on your shelf, in a shed or in a garage or whatever the case may be, boxes in your corner. It does not mean anything to you if it's not producing new happy dollars. So I want you to look at your inventory differently than what you have in the past. And I want you to start thinking about turns. I want you to think about, don't ever have more. The whole goal should be, you should never have more than anywhere. Let's try to shoot for 8 to 10 weeks. Some of you, it needs to be much shorter than that. Some of you can be 2 to 3 weeks. But really, honestly, very few businesses do you need more than 8 to 10 weeks of anything. And I understand sometimes you have to buy in bulk and you have to buy in bigger, but you need to have a plan for that. You need to share it with somebody. You need to have a special to get rid of it. You need to make sure, I'd rather you, let's say you have a minimum. Here's another mistake I see people make all the time. Let's say you have to make a minimum. And what happens is you carry 10 items. And what you do is, to meet your minimum, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to order 10 of everything. No, stop. Do not ever do that. If you have 100 to purchase as a minimum and you carry 10 of those SKUs, don't ever, I'll slap you. Don't ever do 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. They don't sell like that. You need to say, okay, what's my best seller? My best seller is going to be the majority of those. So let's just say you sell 10 items. 5 of them hardly ever sell. I don't even want you touching those things. You know what? You have one that sells like crazy, like hotcakes. You need to have more of that particular item. You know what? And that's what you need to buy the bulk of. For example, when I was buying my ice cream, I had a tub minimum that I had to do. But guess what? I knew that I had to do tons of mint chocolate chip, vanilla, there were just certain flavors, Oreos. Let's just use those 3. Those were my top 3, right? Mint chocolate chip, Oreo, and vanilla. Those were my top 3. So when it came to my buckets that I had to buy, they were going to get way more buckets of my minimum number, because I knew that I needed to have a bunch more of those than the other ones. So some flavors only purchased 1 bucket, if at all. And other ones I purchased like 10 buckets because that's what, or tub, because that's what I needed to do. I want you doing the same thing for your minimums. You know what? If you have to write an order, put the majority of that order into what it is that's going to sell. Stop ordering. And I've watched people, when I worked for Home Depot, people they'd get to the end and they realized they were short on units and they had to make a minimum, and they would just order something that they didn't need. And I'm like, stop. If you ever have to make an order and you have to bump it up, really the right way to do it is to strategically plan out 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead. But until your brain starts thinking like that, at minimum, the best thing you can do is order more of something you know you're going to sell. Because if you have to hit a minimum on something, go with what sells, because at least you know you have the potential to sell the darn thing at some point versus filling it up with something that's just going to sit on your shelf forever. So I want you guys to start thinking of your money differently than what you have thought about it in the past. I want you to have enough to grow, but at the same time, I don't want you sitting on something forever and a day. Let me just check my notes real quick. Okay. My final thing is I want to give you guys a challenge. And this challenge is exactly what I was saying earlier today. I want you to grab a notepad sometime in the next 7 days, if not sooner. I want you to grab a notepad and I want you to write down every single item that you have laying around. Every single thing that you have laying around, and I want you to add up your inventory, and I want you to know how much money you are sitting on. And then out of that inventory, I want you to write out each and every item as you go through. And I want you to write down, what it is, how much you have of it, how much dollars it costs. Then I want you to star everything that is your top sellers and everything, and maybe triple, put 3 stars next to your best sellers and then a double star next to your next best. And anything that's basically below that or whatever the case may be, I want you to figure out, how are you going to get rid of that stuff? What kind of sale are you going to do? How are you going to get rid of it? How are you going to get that cash back into your company so this way that you can grow your business and you can put that money. I'd rather you get that money out of those boxes sitting in the corner doing nothing for you. I'd rather you purchase that piece of equipment, that thing, hire that employee you need to do. Some of you guys are dying and wishing that you had help, and yet the payroll to pay that person is sitting in a corner in a bunch of boxes. Okay? Hire somebody to sell those boxes just so that you can pay for themselves, whatever the case may be. But that's your mission today. I want you guys to go out there and I want you to make sure that you that you count your inventory and you know exactly what it is that you have. Okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this puppy up so that way you can get back to work because you have inventory that you need to go count. Oh, before you go, I need you guys to do me a favor, if you will. If you find that this tip, as well as any of the other ones that I've been giving you, can you do me a favor? I'm on a mission. I want to try to help as many local small business owners as I can. Can you try to grab one of your friends? Well, don't grab your friends. It's the Me Too now, right? But what I want you to do is I want you to take a fellow business owner that you care about, and I want you to introduce them to the world of podcasting. And I'd love for this to be the very first podcast that they start to listen to. I just want to spread the word. I just want to try to help as many people as I can. And I think that by you giving back to me, the best way that you can help me out is by helping others out, because that's what this is all about, is us passing along this information so that we can all become better business owners. So if you know somebody that would benefit from what you hear on the show, have them go ahead and take a listen to the podcast, or, come on over to the Badass Local Small Business Owner Facebook group. We're growing in there. We're learning more and sharing more. So with that, that's just something I just want to make sure that we're always constantly giving and helping other people out at the same time. All right, with that, you have some inventory to go count. So quit listening to me and go count your inventory. Go find out how much you got. And by the way, if you came up with a crazy number, I'd love to hear about it. If you discovered something that you just have to tell me about, don't forget you can send it over to me at Tammy@localsmallbusinesscoach.com. Tammy@localsmallbusinesscoach.com. I would love to be able to hear some of your guys' stories so I could add them to mine, what you've discovered. All right, with that, I really need to go. Bye for now. Hey, Badass, before you go, if your goal is to get your business up to a 6-figure take-home pay, I've got a tool that's going to help you out. If you head on over to localsmallbusinesscoach.com/8 steps or hit the link in the show notes, I've got a free ebook for you. And what I do is I walk you through the 8 steps that you need to take in order to be able to grow your business into a 6-figure income. Listen, you all have goals for your family, for your finances, and you need a roadmap on how to get there. So once again, there is a free ebook called The 8 Steps to $100,000 in Take-Home Pay. It's for yours. It's free. Just head on over to localsmallbusinesscoach.com/8 steps or click the link in the show notes and get yours for free.